Imagine walking into a place that used to be your pride and joy, only to find it crumbling right before your eyes. That's exactly what happened to Zachary Loel, a man who inherited not just a business, but a legacy. Welcome to a story that'll hit close to home for anyone who's ever poured their heart into a job, only to see it go sour. This is Undercover Boss Brews Up Justice, a coffee scandal that'll wake you up. Stick around because you won't believe what one cup of lukewarm coffee uncovered and how it changed everything. Zach muttered to himself, "What the hell happened to this place?" As he stepped out of a beat-up rental car parked across the street from Brew Haven, store number 4 out of 9 in his family's small but cherished coffee chain. This wasn't just any cafe, it was his father's pride, the spot where Saturday mornings meant lines out the door, the air buzzing with laughter, and the smell of fresh espresso. But today, a ghost town. A couple of customers shuffled out, their faces twisted in annoyance, as if the coffee itself had personally insulted them. Zach adjusted his worn baseball cap, pulled his hoodie tighter around his face to hide his identity, and crossed the street with a mix of dread and determination. See, Zach hadn't stepped foot in this location for over a year, not since his dad passed and left the business in his hands. Back then, he'd been thrown into the deep end, drowning in corporate meetings, distributor contracts, and payroll systems he barely understood. He could hardly remember the names of the store managers, let alone the baristas. But when customer complaints started piling up online about this specific location, rude staff, long wait times, coffee so cold it might as well have been ice, Zach knew something was wrong. He'd asked the district manager, a slick guy named Miles, for answers, only to get a dismissive growing pains excuse. Yeah, right. Something in Miles' tone felt off, like a burnt shot of espresso you can't quite stomach. So Zach decided to see for himself not as the owner, but as just another nobody customer. He'd grown out his beard, slapped on a pair of fake prescription glasses, and dressed like a broke college kid who hadn't slept in a week. No one at this store had ever seen him in person. His dad had always handled this location himself, with a warmth and care Zach now realized he'd taken for granted. As he pushed open the door, the smell of burnt espresso hit him like a slap. The music blared too loud for a sleepy morning crowd, and one of the counters was coated in a sticky film of syrup, as if it hadn't been wiped down since the last presidential election. Zach slid into the short line behind a frazzled mom juggling a toddler and a diaper bag, trying to keep a low profile while taking mental notes. Behind the counter, a young barista with platinum blonde hair in a messy bun barely looked up from her phone, which was tucked under her apron strap. She glanced at Zach, then back at her nails, muttering a flat, "Next." The mom in front of him stepped up, placed her order, and fumbled with her wallet while her kid wailed. The barista rolled her eyes so hard, Zach could see it from the back of the line. When it was his turn, he kept it simple. "Large black coffee, please." No response. Just a tap on the screen, a hand held out for payment, and not a single glance his way. He paid in cash, stepped aside, and waited as she prepared his drink with the enthusiasm of someone waiting for a root canal. When he finally got his coffee, he took a sip. Lukewarm. Great. Just great. Zach wandered toward a corner near the hallway leading to the employee break room, not sure if customers were even allowed back there, but he didn't care. He needed to listen, to soak in the vibe or lack thereof. The cafe felt cold, and not just temperature-wise. The energy was off, like a party where everyone's waiting for an excuse to leave. Only one other customer sat in the place, scrolling through his phone, oblivious to the world. Then Zach heard it, 2 voices drifting from the hallway, just out of sight but close enough to catch every word. "If one more idiot asks for a dairy-free option, I swear I'm gonna spit in their drink," a female voice said, sharp and familiar. It was the blonde barista who'd served him. A male voice barked a laugh in response. "You should've seen what I did yesterday. Some dude complained his coffee was weak, so I told him, that's what you get for ordering drip, at a real cafe." They both cackled, and Zach froze, his grip tightening on his cup. The girl continued, "I don't even care anymore. This place is a joke. We're so short-staffed they'll never fire us. We run the damn place." Zach's jaw clenched. His heart pounded like a drum in his chest. The guy added, "I told Miles we should stop wasting time training the new girl. She's too slow. Either she speeds up or we cut her hours." Zach's stomach churned. A new girl? He didn't even know there was a new hire, let alone that baristas were making calls about who worked when. What kind of manager lets that slide? He stood up, coffee still in hand, and walked toward the counter just as the two baristas emerged from the hallway. The guy, tall, lean, with a smug grin, faltered when he saw Zach standing there, staring daggers. "Hey, can I help you?" he asked, his tone shifting to fake politeness. Zach didn't answer. He turned on his heel and walked out the door without a word. Back in his car, he sat in silence for a few minutes, fingers drumming on the steering wheel. He felt sick, not from the coffee, though that didn't help. He'd been so caught up in the business side of things, the spreadsheets and the bottom line, that he'd lost sight of what made Brew Haven special in the first place. Respect, service, community. His dad had built this place on those values, often telling him, "Son, a good cup of coffee starts with a good heart." Now, punks like these two were poisoning it from the inside, and he'd let it happen. But not anymore. Zach pulled out his phone and dialed the one person in the company he still trusted, his assistant, Lee. "I need a full employee list for Store 4, he said, his voice steady but firm. "Send me their schedules and find out when the new girl's next shift is." Lee paused on the other end. "Everything okay?" "No," Zach replied, "but it's about to be." If you thought a lukewarm cup of coffee was the worst thing Zach Loel uncovered at his family's cafe, Brew Haven, think again. Last time we left Zach reeling from overhearing his own baristas trash-talking customers and bullying a new hire. Now, he's not just mad he's on a mission. Disguised as a nobody, Zach is about to step behind the counter to see just how deep the rot goes. Trust me, you don't want to miss what he finds next. The sun hadn't even peeked over the rooftops when Zach pulled into the staff parking lot behind Brew Haven at 5:45 a.m. Frost clung to the windshields of the few cars scattered around, and the air bit at his face as he leaned against the brick wall near the back entrance. He checked his watch, 6:23. According to the schedule his assistant Lee had sent, the new hire, Ava, was set to open this morning alongside the same two baristas he'd overheard yesterday, the blonde with the attitude and the tall guy with the smug grin. Zach hadn't slept much. Their voices kept looping in his head, laughing about cutting someone's hours like it was a punchline at a comedy club. He adjusted his hoodie and cap, making sure his disguise held up. Today, he wasn't the owner. He was Caleb, a random new hire shadowing the team. A white Toyota rolled into the lot and parked near the dumpster. A young woman stepped out, pulling a knit hat over her ears and slinging a canvas tote over her shoulder. She paused, glancing at the building like she was steeling herself for a battle, then headed toward the back door. That had to be Ava. Zach followed at a distance, keeping just enough space so he wouldn't spook her. As she unlocked the door and stepped inside, he caught it with his foot and slipped in behind her. She turned, startled, her hand gripping the key like a lifeline. "Oh, sorry, I thought I locked that." "No worries, you did fine," Zach said, pulling off his hood just enough to seem casual. "I'm supposed to be shadowing today. Name's Caleb." He extended a hand, keeping his tone light. She hesitated, her eyes scanning him like she was deciding whether to bolt, then shook it. "Ava, you're new. First shift?" He nodded, and she led him through a narrow hallway toward the staff area. "You're not late, so that's already a win. Just a heads up, mornings can be rough, especially if you're not used to the pace." The back room was a cramped mess with dented metal lockers, a mini fridge that looked like it had survived a war, and a folding table with a half-empty box of stale, powdered donuts. Ava pulled off her jacket and wrapped an apron around her waist. With quick, practiced movements, though there was a hint of hesitation in her posture, like she was always waiting for someone to snap at her. Zach mirrored her, tying on an apron while taking in every detail. "You'll probably be on dish and restock," she said, her voice matter-of-fact. "That's usually where they start people." "Got it. You like it here?" he asked, keeping his tone casual, almost like a buddy just making small talk. She tightened her apron, then gave a small shrug that spoke volumes. "It's fine. I just need the hours. I'm in school, so I take what I can get." Before he could dig deeper, heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. The door swung open, and the tall barista from yesterday, Logan, according to his name tag, strode in, earbuds dangling around his neck, chewing gum like he owned the place. "You're early," he said to Ava, not even looking at her. Then his eyes landed on Zach. "Who's this?" "New hire," Ava replied, her voice steady but quiet. "First day." Logan sized Zach up, his lip curling slightly. "They keep sending us people. Not sure why. We're full." Zach kept his expression neutral, biting back the urge to say, "Oh, I know exactly why, pal." Instead, he just shrugged. "Just doing what I'm told." Logan grabbed an apron off a hook, then turned to Ava. "You're on register." "Caleb, was it? You're on dish. Don't get in the way." He didn't wait for a reply before heading to the front, his attitude trailing behind him like a bad smell. Zach leaned toward Ava, lowering his voice. "He always like that?" She gave a tight smile, more polite than amused. "Mostly. Just keep your head down and you'll be fine." They stepped out onto the main floor. The cafe was still dark, but pre-opening tasks were in full swing. Counters wiped, barely. Pastries arranged, sloppily. Machines warmed up with a groan. The blonde barista from yesterday, Mira, was already there, fiddling with the espresso grinder. "Morning," Ava offered. Mira didn't respond, just adjusted the grind setting and walked off without a glance. Zach moved to the dish station, starting to rinse out pitchers caked with dried milk while keeping his eyes on everything. The sink area was a disaster, cleaning supplies shoved into a cracked plastic bin, the drain board missing legs and tilting awkwardly like it was drunk. By 7:15, the first customers trickled in, and the morning rush built fast. So did the tension. "I said no whipped cream," a woman at the counter snapped. Ava apologized, moving to fix the drink, but before she could, Logan snatched it from her and dumped it in the sink with a dramatic flourish. "Do it again," he barked, then turned to the woman with a fake smile. "Sorry, she's still learning." The customer shot Ava a look of irritation, and Zach saw Ava's hands tremble slightly as she remade the drink. He caught her eye as she stepped back. "You were fine," he whispered. She gave a small nod, but didn't speak. By 8 o'clock, the cafe was packed, the line stretching nearly to the door, mobile orders pouring in nonstop. Mira started cutting corners, no sleeves on hot cups, underfilled lattes, misread names. "Hey, this is supposed to be a cappuccino," a man at the pickup counter complained. "It is," Mira shot back, not looking up. "It's mostly milk." "That's what a cappuccino is," the man said, raising an eyebrow. "No, it's not," Mira shrugged. "I don't make the rules," she said, then turned away. Zach watched the man leave, drink untouched, shaking his head. Logan glanced over with a smirk. "Next time, just tell him it's a dry latte. They don't know the difference." Mira laughed. Ava didn't. Zach stepped away from the sink and approached Ava at the register during a brief lull. "You need a second?" She wiped her hands on her apron, her face tense. "No, I'm good. You sure? Your hands are shaking." She paused, then nodded reluctantly. "I'm just trying not to screw up. I need this job." Zach lowered his voice, sensing the weight behind her words. "You're not the problem here." She looked at him for a moment, a flicker of doubt in her eyes. "You don't know them yet." Before he could respond, Logan called from the espresso machine, his voice dripping with annoyance. "Caleb, can you do something useful and dump the mop bucket? It's full." Zach glanced toward the back. "Where's the mop sink?" Logan didn't answer. Mira waved a hand dismissively. "Just pour it out by the dumpster. We don't have a mop sink." Zach hesitated, knowing full well that wasn't up to health code. "That's not you planning to report us, new guy?" Logan cut in, turning with a challenging stare. Zach didn't reply. He grabbed the bucket and headed toward the back, passing Ava as she handed off a drink with a quiet thank you to a customer. Outside, behind the building, he tipped the bucket carefully into a patch of gravel near the dumpster. The smell was rancid, and he noticed 3 other spots where mop water had clearly been dumped recently, stains on the concrete, sticky residue glinting in the morning light. It wasn't just a one-time shortcut. This was a habit. A lazy, dangerous habit. When he returned, Logan was on his phone behind the counter. Mira was restocking syrups with one hand while texting with the other, and Ava was struggling to ring up a complicated order while apologizing to the customer for the wait. Zach went back to the dish station, scrubbing harder than necessary at a milk pitcher. He didn't need to see anything else to know the truth. The apathy, the shortcuts, the way Ava was being crushed under the weight of their indifference. It wasn't just a bad day or a couple of bad moods. This was rot, deep and systemic, festering under the very roof he was supposed to protect. He glanced over at Ava, who was wiping the counter, eyes down, shoulders hunched like she was carrying the weight of the world. Then and there, Zach made a decision. This wasn't just about cleaning up a store. It was about rebuilding trust from the counter up, just like his dad always said. If you've been with us so far, you know Zach Loel, the undercover boss of Brew Haven, has seen enough. From apathetic baristas cutting corners to a new hire, Ava struggling under the weight of a toxic workplace, the rot at store number 4 runs deep. But today, Zach's done playing Caleb, the quiet new guy. It's time to drop the disguise and brew up some justice. Stick around, because this reveal is about to shake the grounds of this cafe, and you won't believe who steps up when the steam clears. Zach stood at the dish station, scrubbing a milk pitcher with more force than necessary, his mind racing. The morning rush had died down, but the tension in Brew Haven hung thicker than the smell of burnt espresso. He'd seen it all in just a few hours: Logan's smug bullying, Mira's careless shortcuts, and Ava's quiet resilience despite being thrown under the bus at every turn. This wasn't just a poorly run cafe. It was a betrayal of everything his father had built. Enough was enough. Zach dried his hands, walked into the cramped back room, and pulled out his phone. "Lee," he said when his assistant answered, "I need the regional manager here by tonight. We're shutting this place down for a staff reset and retraining, and I want to meet Ava off-site, somewhere quiet." Lee hesitated on the other end. "Everything okay?" Zach glanced around the break room, the flickering overhead light, the faint smell of burnt cheese from a neglected toaster, the silence where there should have been pride. "Not even close," he said, "but we're going to fix it." That evening, just past 7 p.m., Ava stepped into the side entrance of a local library, her backpack slung low and her coat clutched tight around her like a shield. She spotted Zach still in his Caleb disguise for now waiting near a window at a small table with 2 paper cups and a plain manila folder. He stood when he saw her, his posture calm but unreadable. "Hey," she said, cautious but polite. "You wanted to talk?" Zach nodded. "Thanks for coming. Sit down." She hesitated, then pulled out the chair across from him, setting her bag on the floor. The library was nearly empty, just a few students murmuring over textbooks. Outside, headlights from passing cars cast slow-moving shadows on the wall. Zach pushed one of the cups toward her. "Chamomile. I wasn't sure what you liked, but it seemed like a safe bet." She wrapped her hands around the cup, nodding slightly. "Thanks. So what is this?" Zach met her eyes, his voice steady. "My name's not Caleb. It's Zachary Loel. I own the cafe you've been working at." Her eyes widened, and she blinked, processing the bombshell. "Wait, what?" "I went undercover," he continued. "This location has been sliding for months, and I couldn't get a straight answer from anyone in corporate. I needed to see it myself." Ava leaned back, her eyebrows pulling together as the weight of it sank in. "You're serious?" He gave her a moment to let it settle, then added, I didn't mean to pull you into anything, but after what I saw today, I couldn't walk away. So what now? Are you in trouble? No, Zach said quickly, not even close. You've been holding this place together. I came here because I wanted to understand what you've been dealing with off the record. No managers, no consequences. I just want the truth. Silence stretched between them as she stared at the table, biting the inside of her cheek. Then quietly she spoke. I almost quit last week, but I need the paycheck. That's the only reason I'm still showing up. Zach leaned forward slightly. What made you want to walk away? Her grip on the cup tightened. It's like you try to do things right, and you're still the problem. Logan told me I was replaceable on my second shift. I thought he was joking. Then Mira started leaving me out of tasks, telling me to watch and learn while she skipped steps and blamed me when customers complained. Zach listened, his expression neutral but alert. They don't train anyone, she went on, her voice gaining a bitter edge. They just throw you into the rush and get mad when you can't keep up. And if you ask for help, they act like you're wasting their time. How long have you been working there? He asked. 3 weeks, she said flatly, and it already feels like a year. Zach nodded slowly. Has anyone from management ever checked in with you? Ava gave a short, bitter laugh. Miles came in once for 10 minutes, just long enough to ask if we were settling in. Logan stood right next to me the whole time, like he was making sure I didn't say anything. Zach didn't speak for a few seconds. He reached for the folder and slid it open. Inside was a printout of the last 3 staffing schedules. We're understaffed by at least 2 people for mornings, he said, pointing to the grid, and nobody's requested additional coverage. The schedules haven't changed in over a month. Ava looked down at the sheet, frowning. That's why Mira's doing closing and opening back to back. I thought she volunteered. She didn't, Zach said. Logan's been submitting the scheduling himself, and Miles has been approving it without checking shift logs. Ava sat back, the realization hitting her. So they're just doing whatever they want? Zach closed the folder. Not anymore. She looked at him, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. What are you going to do? I've already called our regional manager, he said. The store's closing for the next 3 days. We're bringing in a temporary team to clean, restock, and retrain every employee. Ava's eyes widened. You're shutting it down? It's the only way to fix this without putting a bandage over a broken bone, he explained. We'll still pay everyone scheduled, but only the ones who show up for retraining will be considered for rehire. Ava stared at him. You're giving them a choice? I believe in second chances, Zach said, but I don't believe in rewarding apathy. Anyone who wants to keep their job will have to earn it. She looked down at her tea, then back at him. What about me? You've already earned yours, he said plainly. We're promoting you to shift supervisor, not just a title. You'll get access to scheduling, be part of store meetings, and pair you with one of our senior trainers. I want your input when we rebuild the team. Her mouth opened, but no words came for a second. Then she swallowed hard. Why me? Because you care, Zach said, and because you didn't fold, even when it would have been easier to. We need people like you if we're going to fix what's broken. Ava brushed a thumb along the rim of her cup, her voice quiet. I don't know if I'm ready for that. You weren't ready for what they threw at you either, Zach countered, but you showed up. That counts. She gave a small nod, the weight of the opportunity settling in. So, what happens tomorrow? He'll meet you outside the cafe at 7 a.m., he said. We'll walk the team through what's changing. Anyone who tries to push back gets 1 warning. After that, they're out. Ava's jaw tightened slightly. Logan's not going to like that. Zach's tone didn't waver. He doesn't have to. As they wrapped up, Zach stood, slid the folder into his bag, and picked up his coat. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Ava gathered her things, hesitating for a moment. Why now? Why not months ago? Zach looked at her, his voice carrying a hint of regret. Because I stopped listening to the floor. I let reports replace reality. That's on me. She nodded once, her expression serious. Then I guess we both have something to prove. He gave her a respectful nod and left without another word. That night, Zach sat in his hotel room, staring at the wall. He replayed every conversation in his mind, not just with Ava, but with his father years earlier, sitting across from him in a booth at their original location. Trust is built from the counter up, his dad had said, not the office down. Somewhere along the way, Zach had forgotten that, but tomorrow he'd start again from the counter up. He wasn't just fighting for a store, he was fighting for a legacy. And if Logan or Mira thought they could stand in the way, they were about to learn just how hot a fresh brew of accountability could burn. If you've stuck with us this far, you know Zach Loel, the undercover boss of Brew Haven, has dropped the disguise and laid out his plan to save store number 4 from its toxic spiral. With Ava stepping up as a potential leader and a 3-day closure for retraining on the horizon, the stage is set for a showdown. But when push comes to shove, who will rise to the occasion, and who will get steamed out? Stay tuned, because this final brew is about to serve up some serious justice and a few surprises you didn't see coming. By the time the sun rose the next morning, a temporary operations crew was already wheeling in crates of cleaning supplies and replacing the warped pastry racks with shiny new ones at Brew Haven. A printed "closed for internal training" sign hung on the cafe's front door, causing several regulars to pause outside, read it in confusion, and walk off with a mix of disappointment and curiosity. Inside, Zach leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching as Ava checked a supply list against the clipboard he'd handed her. Her hair was tied back tightly, and she moved with quiet purpose, no unnecessary questions. No stalling, just work. The dairy delivery came in late, she reported, glancing up. We're missing oat milk, but I flagged it with the temp lead. Zach nodded. Well, reroute stock from the Midtown store. You good to help walk the others through protocol? She hesitated, her eyes scanning the bustling crew, wiping down walls and reorganizing station drawers. Depends on who shows up. Zach gave a small, knowing smirk. Let's find out. At precisely 7:30 a.m., Mira stepped through the front door, her usual nonchalant swagger faltering as she took in the scene. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Then her eyes landed on Zach, now in a charcoal blazer, his beard trimmed, glasses gone every inch the owner he'd hidden until now. Ava looked over from the register, saying nothing. Zach stepped forward, his tone calm but firm. You're Mira, right? She blinked twice, then gave a short nod. Yeah, I didn't know. Nobody said anything. No one was supposed to, Zach replied. We're changing that. You're still on the payroll, but this is a clean slate. If you want to be part of the new team, you'll need to go through retraining like everyone else. Her eyes flicked around the store, taking in the deep clean in progress. So you're firing people? We're offering a chance to stay, Zach corrected. That's different. She shifted her weight, uncertainty creeping into her posture. And if we don't want to, you can leave. No hard feelings. But if you stay, things will be done right. No exceptions. Mira didn't respond immediately. Instead, she walked to the back slowly, like she was still trying to figure out if this was real. Logan arrived 15 minutes later, wearing the same ratty hoodie from the day before, his earbuds dangling like a badge of defiance. He paused outside the door, watching the activity inside with a scowl. When he finally walked in, he didn't look at Zach. His eyes went straight to Ava. What is this? He asked, his voice low and edged with irritation. Zach stepped between them, his presence cutting off any chance for intimidation. Training, restructuring, you're welcome to take part. Logan scoffed, crossing his arms. You can't just come in and I can, Zach interrupted, his voice steady as steel. I own the company. You've been running this store without oversight for too long. That ends now. Logan's gaze shifted to Ava, accusation burning in his eyes. You told him everything. I didn't have to, she replied, her tone even. You did that yourself. He turned back to Zach, his jaw tight. This is ridiculous. We've been doing the best we can. You pull staff, cut hours, and now we're the bad guys? Zach didn't raise his voice, but every word carried weight. You submitted falsified time logs. You ignored health code. You intimidated staff. That's not doing your best. That's abusing your position. Logan's smirk faltered, but he held his ground. So, what? I'm fired? You're not a fit for the direction we're going, Zach said plainly. You'll be compensated for the past 2 weeks. After that, your access to company systems will be terminated. There was a long pause. Logan stared at him, then let out a short, bitter laugh that didn't reach his eyes. Unbelievable. He turned and walked out without another word, the door slamming behind him. Zach let out a slow breath, the air in the room feeling just a fraction lighter. Mira, who'd returned to the counter during the exchange, stood quietly watching. I didn't know he was doing all that, she said, her voice subdued. I just thought he had authority. No one has authority without accountability, Zach replied. If you're staying, that's what we expect. She nodded, her usual bravado gone. I'll stay. By 9 a.m., the rest of the remaining staff had trickled in, some embarrassed, others confused, but they listened as the new protocols were explained. Sanitation procedures, scheduling transparency, customer interaction standards. Ava led the walkthroughs with a quiet steadiness that surprised even herself, clarifying questions without condescension, and redirecting Mira when she instinctively reached for her phone. Zach stayed off to the side, intervening only when necessary. He watched how Ava didn't flinch when asked why things were changing. They weren't working, she said plainly, and we deserve better than that. By late afternoon, the work crew had finished deep cleaning the kitchen. A new mop sink had been installed near the back hallway, and a rotating break schedule was posted on the staff fridge. Ava stood before it, reviewing it line by line. Zach joined her. Think we missed anything? She tapped one of the slots. Well, need to stagger lunch breaks tighter on weekends. If we're not careful, we'll lose coverage between noon and 2. Zach nodded. Good catch. She glanced at him, a flicker of confidence in her eyes. So this is permanent, all of it? As long as it works, he said, but it's not just about rules. It's about culture. That doesn't change overnight. I know, she replied, but it starts somewhere. He studied her for a moment. There was no hesitation in her voice now, no trace of the girl who'd once apologized for handing off a coffee too slowly. You ever think about management long-term? He asked. She blinked, caught off guard. Are you offering? Not yet, he said with a small smile. But I'm watching. At closing time, the temporary team packed up. The cafe would reopen to the public the next morning with only 3 original staff members remaining: Ava, Mira, and a part-timer named Theo, who'd quietly kept his head down through the chaos, and now stepped forward for the first time, eager to learn. As Zach turned out the lights, Mira approached him, her usual aloofness replaced by something softer. I've been thinking, she said. I've worked in cafes since I was 17. I used to like it. Then it just became about getting through the shift. Zach didn't interrupt, letting her speak. I want to like it again. I don't know if I can lead, but I'll show up. That's a start, he said, his tone encouraging. Outside, the evening was quiet. Zach locked the door, then handed the keys to Ava. You'll open tomorrow. She took them, a small but determined nod accompanying her words. I've got it. Call me if anything feels off, he added. And I mean anything. She pocketed the keys and met his gaze. Will do. As he walked to his car, Zach glanced back and saw her standing at the door, looking through the glass at the space they'd just rebuilt together, not with new counters or flashy slogans, but with the hard, steady rebuilding of trust. Inside, the coffee machines gleamed, the tables were clean, and the air no longer carried the weight of exhaustion. It had taken 3 days, but the rot had been cut out. Brew Haven was ready to live again, but the story doesn't end with a shiny cafe. Let's talk about what this means for you. You, the one grinding through long shifts at a diner, a warehouse, or a retail counter. You've seen it myself in my years of digging into workplace stories across America. Take the case of Maria, a single mom working double shifts at a fast food joint in Chicago. Her manager played favorites, cut corners on safety, and blamed the crew for every customer complaint. Sound familiar? Maria felt invisible until a district supervisor, much like Zach, stepped in after an anonymous tip, fired the manager, and gave her a shot at a leadership role. She wasn't ready either, but she showed up. Today, she runs that store with a fairness her old boss never had. The lesson here isn't just about bosses swooping in to save the day. It's about the power of showing up, even when the odds are stacked against you. Zach could have stayed in his corporate bubble, ignoring the complaints piling up online. Ava could have quit after her second shift when Logan called her replaceable. Mira could have walked out when faced with retraining, but they didn't. They chose to fight for something better, Zach for his father's legacy, Ava for her future, Mira for a second chance. And that's the grind worth respecting. So ask yourself, what's your Brew Haven? Where in your work life are you seeing rot? Maybe a toxic coworker, a manager who doesn't care, or even your own burnout. You might not own the company, but you own your effort. Speak up, even if it's just to a trusted colleague. Document what's wrong, like Maria did with her tip. And if you're in a position to lead, whether it's as a shift supervisor or just the person who sets the tone on your team, remember Zach's dad's words. Trust is built from the counter up. Start small, but start somewhere. Because sometimes the bitterest cup of coffee can wake you up to the sweetest change. If you've been inspired by the story of Brew Haven and Zach's journey to find his true worth, be sure to give us a thumbs up. Share it with your friends or colleagues. They might need a little motivation to make a change in their careers. And if you want to see more inspiring stories like this, from disguised bosses to hot social issues, subscribe and turn on notifications. We're always coming up with new stories, powerful lessons, and surprises. See you next time.